Get on a plane. Now. Don't say a word to your mom or your brother. That text hit my phone at 6:47 a.m. while I was sitting on a sun-drenched balcony in Hilton Head, South Carolina. I was watching my mother actually laugh, for the first time in 21 years at some joke my brother cracked. Came from an unknown number. No name, no ID. Just 10 words that turned my stomach into a block of ice. 12 hours later, I was standing in the arrivals terminal at Bradley International Airport in Hartford. A guy in a sharp gray suit was holding a sign with my name on it, Lexi Vance. Next to him stood 2 state troopers. What they showed me in that airport conference room, I don't even remember hitting the floor. I just remember coming to under those soul-sucking fluorescent lights with a paramedic telling me to count backward from 10. That was 4 months ago. I still don't sleep through the night. But I have to lay this all out. Because what my family tried to do to me, and what I had to do to survive them, stripped me down and rebuilt me into someone else entirely. Before I get into the heavy stuff, if this story hits home for you, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more than you know. And hey, drop a comment with where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I'm Lexi Vance, I'm 32, and this is the story of how my own flesh and blood tried to erase me, and how the truth became my only weapon. Let's go back to a miserable, rainy Tuesday in Glastonbury, Connecticut. The night I stopped being a daughter and became a ghost. It was November 14th. I remember the date because I'd just brought home a permission slip for a field trip to the Wadsworth Atheneum in Hartford. All I needed was a signature and $5. 5 measly bucks. My mother, Eleanor Vance, was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in. She had the phone pressed to her ear, her voice flat and cold like she was reading off a grocery list. "It's done," she said. "She's hitting the road tonight." I didn't know who she was talking to. Hell, I still don't. She hung up and looked at me like I was a grease stain on a marble countertop, something annoying that needed to be scrubbed away. "Pack your crap," she said. I actually smiled, thinking she meant for the trip. "You're leaving tonight," she snapped. My brother, Jax, was 14 at the time. He was leaning against the railing at the top of the stairs, watching the whole thing go down. He didn't say a word. He didn't move an inch. He just looked at me like he was watching some boring rerun on TV. Eleanor threw open the front door. The rain was absolutely hammering the porch. She handed me a black heavy-duty trash bag, the kind you use for lawn clippings, and said 4 words that'll haunt me until I'm in the dirt. Go. Don't come back. No suitcase. No jacket. No, I love you. No $5. I walked 3 miles in that downpour. My Chuck Taylors were soaked through by the second block. Trash bags snagged on a fence at the corner of Hebron Avenue, and my library book tumbled right into a muddy puddle. I finally made it to my grandfather's place on Hubbard Street at 9:20 p.m. When he opened the door, he didn't ask for a play-by-play. He didn't call Eleanor to scream at her. He just knelt on that wet porch, wrapped his arms around me, and whispered, "You're home now, kiddo." That was the last time anyone in my family held me for over 2 decades. My grandfather, Silas Thorne, was a retired civil engineer who lived like he was still pinching pennies from his first paycheck. He had a small Cape Cod house, a vegetable patch out back, and a garage workshop where he fixed everything from vintage watches to old ham radios. He rotated the same 3 flannel shirts and drank his coffee blacker than midnight from a mug that said "World's Okayest Grandpa." My grandmother, Rosemary, was the heartbeat of that house. She taught me how to make a mean pot roast on Sundays and braided my hair every morning before school. She read to me every night, even when I was 12 and definitely too old for it. I never told her to stop. For 7 years, that little house on Hubbard was the only place on earth where I felt like a real person. Eleanor never called. Not once. Jax never wrote. No birthday cards, no "Hey, you alive?" texts, nothing. It was like they'd hit delete on my entire existence. Silas never forced me to talk about it. But once, when I was 13 and crying in the garage because some mean girl at school asked why my mom skipped the parent-teacher conference, he put down his wrench. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Someday you'll see why I'm saving the best for you. Not today, Lex. But someday." I noticed things back then. Small things. A guy in a charcoal suit used to visit Silas every few months. They'd lock themselves in the study. I'd hear low murmurs, but never the full story. When I asked, Silas just said, "Just an old friend helping with some boring paperwork." I didn't push. I was just happy to have a roof over my head. Rosemary passed when I was 16. A stroke. It was fast, which was a mercy, but the house felt freezing after that. Silas kept going for my sake, I think. He drove me to college tours, proofread my essays, and kept a locked oak box on the top shelf of his closet. I asked him once what was in it. He just grinned. "Your future." Silas died in his sleep 3 weeks before I started my freshman year. I found him on a Saturday morning, still in his flannel, one hand resting on a book about structural bridges. He looked peaceful. He looked done. The funeral was tiny. A few neighbors, the local pastor, the lady from the hardware store, and then Eleanor walked in. I hadn't seen her in 7 years. She was draped in black from head to toe, a silver cross dangling from her neck. She glided through the church like she was starring in a Lifetime movie, dabbing her eyes and whispering thank you to strangers for their condolences. She didn't look at me once. But Jax did. He walked right up to the front pew where I was sitting, leaned down, and hissed into my ear, "Grandpa left everything to Mom. You get Zip." Then he gave me this tiny, jagged smile that vanished before anyone else could see it. After the service, a man approached me in the parking lot. Gray suit. I knew him. The paperwork guy. "Miss Vance," he said. "My name is Caleb Sterling. I was your grandfather's attorney for 30 years. He handed me a cream-colored envelope, sealed with heavy wax. "Your grandfather asked me to give you this when the time was right. The time isn't now. But keep my card." I took it. I put both in my wallet and didn't touch them for 14 years. I paid my way through college with scholarships, 3 part-time jobs, and enough ramen to fuel a small country. I studied computer science at UConn, graduated at the top of my class, and moved to San Francisco with $600 and a carry-on. By 24, I was grinding 80-hour weeks at a startup in Soma, writing code for an app one hated, and sleeping in a studio apartment the size of a walk-in closet. My family didn't know where I was. They didn't care. But something was simmering inside me. Not just anger, purpose. I kept thinking about the kids I'd met who'd aged out of the foster system with zero safety net. No one to call when the car broke down or the rent hiked up. I knew that soul-crushing loneliness. 27, I built Kinship. It was a platform to match those kids with mentors who'd actually show up. By 30, a VC firm dropped a massive investment. Company was valued at $65 million. On paper, I was a tech mogul. In my head, I was still that 11-year-old girl in the rain. My only real friend was Maya Kim, a nurse I met freshman year. She was from South Philly, blunt, stubborn, and the kind of person who'd tell you your outfit was trash before she even said hello. Maya had one rule about my family. If they ever come crawling back, it ain't 'cause they miss you. It's 'cause they're broke. I believed her, but there's a part of you that always wants to be wrong. Call came on a Wednesday at 9:14 p.m. My phone lit up with a Connecticut area code. Lexi. The voice was older, shakier, but I'd know it anywhere. "It's your mother." I didn't say a word. "I know I don't deserve this," she whimpered. She told me she had early-stage cancer. She said she'd found God. She said, "I'm sorry," so many times it sounded like a rehearsed script. Then she dropped the bait. "I want us to be a family again before it's too late. A vacation. Hilton Head. Just us. Jax wants to apologize too." I said no. She cried. I hung up and called Maya. The cancer card, Maya groaned. Classic. Don't go. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. I fought with that desperate little voice in my head that whispered, maybe this time is different. On the 3rd night, I looked at a photo of me and Silas on his porch. He would have wanted me to try. Called Eleanor back. 3 days. That's it. I'm booking my own room. She agreed instantly. That should have been my first red flag. 20 minutes later, a text from an unknown number. Be careful. I thought it was spam and deleted it. That was the second red flag I ignored. Hilton Head in September is gorgeous, but it felt borrowed. Fake. Jax had booked a beachfront resort that probably cost more per night than Silas's pension. I didn't ask where the money came from. Eleanor looked fragile when I saw her in the lobby. She hugged me and started sobbing. You look just like your grandmother, she choked out. Jax was behind her, looking like a master of the universe in a linen shirt and a designer watch. He shook my hand like we were closing a business deal. Hey, sis. Long time. He introduced his girlfriend, Sienna, a blonde with a customer service smile who hugged me like she was filming a commercial. Dinner was a nightmare of forced normalcy. Jax kept asking what I did for a living. Then he asked if I owned my place in SF. Then he asked, are you doing okay financially? Family should look out for each other. I gave him nothing. When I got to my room, the unknown number texted again. Did your brother hit you up for cash yet? I took a screenshot this time. The next morning, Eleanor staged family photos on the beach. She flagged down a resort worker and made sure to say, loud enough for everyone to hear, my daughter finally came home after years of running away. She's always been the stubborn one. Running away. Like I hadn't been kicked out into a storm with a trash bag. Later, Jax cornered me. Look, I'll be real. I've hit some speed bumps. Some debts, nothing crazy. Have you thought about sibling investments? I'm not investing in anything, I said flatly. He pivoted fast. You know Silas left everything to Mom, right? Not that it was much. He was fishing. Watching my eyes for a reaction. That night, I heard them in the hallway outside my room. She doesn't know, Eleanor whispered. Keep pushing. She's getting twitchy, Jax replied. Then be more convincing. I pressed my back against the wall, heart hammering against my ribs. I texted the unknown number. Who are you? 3 minutes later. Someone your grandfather trusted. Day 3. The final boss day. Jax showed up to breakfast with a manila folder. He slid a document across the table. Family trust agreement, it said. Mom and I think it's best to consolidate everything under one name. Just a formality. I've spent 5 years reading tech contracts. I know a power of attorney trap when I see one. This paper would give Jax full control over any asset tied to the Thorn name. I need time to read this, I said. Jax's jaw tightened. Mom already signed. I said I need time. Back in my room, I sent photos of the pages to my lawyer in San Francisco. 2 hours later, he called me. Lexi, do not sign that. This gives your brother the keys to stuff you don't even know exists. Then the unknown number sent the text that changed everything. Fly home. Don't say anything to your mother or brother. 6 a.m. flight from Savannah. Take it. Car will be waiting in Hartford. Don't be afraid. I sat on that bed, shaking. Was this a scam? Was I being paranoid? But then I thought about that trash bag in the rain. I chose to trust a stranger over my own blood. I snuck out at 4:30 a.m. No note. No goodbye. When I landed at Bradley, I saw him. Caleb Sterling. The gray suit. The state troopers. They took me to that beige conference room. Caleb laid it all out with the precision of a surgeon. Your grandfather's will was drafted in 2012, Caleb said. He named you Lexi as the sole beneficiary of his entire estate. The house, the accounts, the investments. The total value is roughly $12 million. The room spun. He told me to execute it only when two conditions were met, Caleb continued. One, you turned 32. Two, your family tried to contact you. He knew they'd only come back if they smelled the money. Then he looked at the troopers. But that's not why we're here. He showed me screenshots from Jax's phone, intercepted by a private investigator named Reese Logan. One message from Jax to a guy named Vered, she's here. Room 412. If she doesn't sign by Thursday, we go to Plan B. The reply, Plan B costs double. Jax, whatever it takes. Reese Logan, the PI, spoke up. Your brother is over $800,000 in debt to some very nasty people. Mostly gambling. He found a draft of the will in your grandpa's old desk and realized you were the only thing standing between him and the money. What's Plan B? I whispered. Make it look like an accident, Reese said. Balcony fall. Drowning. Whatever's clean. Then she showed me the one that broke me. Jax to Eleanor, she's not signing. We might need the backup plan. Eleanor's reply, do what you have to do. Just keep me out of it. My own mother. My own mother gave the green light to end me. I went to the bathroom and threw up. Then I cried until my lungs burned. But when I walked back out, the girl in the rain was gone. What's the move? I asked. Caleb handed me the sealed envelope from 14 years ago. Open it when you're ready. I waited until I was safe in a hotel with Maya. I cracked the wax. Inside was a photo of me and Rosemary and a note. Lexi, your mother was broken long before you were born. She broke you instead of fixing herself. Build your own nest, little bird. You are always enough. 7 a.m. the next morning, the cops knocked on Eleanor's door in Glastonbury. They hauled Jax out in handcuffs while Eleanor screamed in her bathrobe. She called me 40 minutes later, hyperventilating. What have you done? They took your brother. He tried to have me killed, Mom. That's a lie. You're just bitter. I have the texts, Eleanor. Including yours. Do what you have to do. I'm done. I hung up. Over the next few days, it came out. A neighbor, Mrs. Gable, called me. She told me she'd actually called the cops the night I was kicked out at 11. She saw a kid walking in a storm with a trash bag. But Eleanor had lied to the responding officer, told him I'd gone to a relative's house, and the cops just let it go. I stood there in my hotel room looking at the city lights. I hadn't known a single thing about any of it. I'm calling because I owe you one hell of an apology, Mrs. Gable's voice crackled over the line. It was thin, shaky, and sounded like it was coming from 1,000 miles away, though I knew she was just 3 houses down from the ghost of my childhood on Sunset Terrace. I should have followed up, Lexi. I should have looked harder. I should have called the cops back a second time when I didn't see you at school the next week. I didn't. I let your mother's silver tongue convince me everything was fine, and I've lived with that regret for 21 years. Sitting in that sterile beige airport conference room in Hartford, listening to a neighbor from 2 decades ago apologize for my own mother's cruelty, I felt a strange shift in my chest. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was the cold, hard realization that my life had been a series of almosts and should-haves. Caleb Sterling later confirmed that my grandfather, Silas Thorne, hadn't just known about that police report. He'd kept a certified copy of it tucked away in a safe deposit box right next to his original will. He knew exactly what Eleanor had done. He knew she'd lied to that responding officer, painting me as a troubled runaway while I was actually shivering on his porch. And then Caleb told me the piece of the puzzle that absolutely wrecked me. Lexi, Caleb said, his voice dropping to a low, steady hum, your grandfather didn't just sit back. Between 2003 and 2010, Silas filed for emergency legal guardianship of you 17 different times. 17 petitions. He walked into the Hartford Superior Court every few months, desperate to give you a legal home so Eleanor couldn't just snatch you back if she felt like it. But every single time he filed, your mother fought back with a savagery I've rarely seen. She threatened to bury him. She told him that if he didn't back off, she'd go to the authorities and accuse him of inappropriate conduct with you. She used a disgusting, manufactured lie like a loaded gun to keep him away. He realized the only way to protect you was to stay in the shadows. My grandfather had fought for me in the dark, and my mother had used a lie like a serrated blade to stop him. I didn't fight back on social media. I didn't post a rebuttal to her church friends. I did what Silas taught me. I built something. Caleb filed the petition to validate the will with the Hartford probate court. The hearing was set for 2 weeks out. Eleanor's lawyer was already playing the diminished capacity card, claiming Silas was senile when he signed the papers. It was a common bottom-tier legal move, but it was almost always a losing one when the signer had a clean psychiatric evaluation on file, which Silas did. Dated 2 weeks before the will was signed, conducted by a board-certified doc in New Haven. Full competency confirmed. But Caleb had more. He arrived at my hotel one afternoon carrying a heavy wooden box. Brass latch, oil-stained edges. I recognized it instantly. The box from Silas's top shelf. This was in his master closet, Caleb said. He left instructions that I should give it to you when the legal war began. I opened it. Inside were 7 leather-bound notebooks, Silas's diary spanning 7 years. I opened the first one at random. March 2009, called Eleanor again. She said Lexi is better off without this family. Maybe she's right, but not in the way Eleanor means it. He documented everything. Every phone call, every refusal, every quiet act of protection. He wasn't just planning my bank account, he was documenting a crime scene. I called Mrs. Gable that evening. "Will you testify?" I asked. "About the rain? About the trash bag? About what you saw?" "Yes," she said. "I should have done it 21 years ago." Meanwhile, my best friend Maya helped me connect with a non-profit that specialized in transitional housing for foster youth. Silas's house on Hubbard Street had been empty for 14 years, but his will included a specific note in the margins, for the kids who need a door opened. I was starting to see the full picture. My grandfather hadn't just saved me. He'd designed a blueprint for what came next. 3 days before the hearing, Jax's defense attorney reached out with a deal. Jax would plead guilty to a lesser charge if I didn't pursue civil damages. "I don't want his money," I told Caleb. "I want him to face what he did." That same afternoon, Eleanor called. No cancer voice this time. No, I found God trembling. This was the Eleanor I remembered. Cold, measured, stripped of the performance. "Drop the charges," she hissed. "Walk away, or I'll make sure every person in this state knows what kind of daughter you are." "And what kind is that?" I asked. "The kind who destroys her own family," she snapped. "You destroyed this family 21 years ago on a rainy Tuesday night," I said. I was just the evidence. I hung up before she could breathe. The night before the trial, I returned to the oak box. The very bottom, beneath the notebooks, I found a savings book. College education fund in the name of Lexi Vance, opened the day I was born. The final entry was a deposit dated 3 months before he died. On the last page, in his careful engineer's hand, "For the nest you'll build yourself." Sitting there holding that book, I realized something. He never forgot me. Not for a single day. Even when I thought I was completely alone in the world, someone was quietly building a floor beneath me so I wouldn't fall through. Courtroom. Hartford Probate Court, Courtroom 3B. 9:15 a.m. on a Tuesday. The room was packed. Eleanor's church friends filled one side, a cluster of women in modest blouses, whispering and clutching their purses like shields. On the other side sat Mrs. Gable, Maya, and 2 reporters from the Hartford Courant. Eleanor sat at the respondents' table in a black dress, a silver cross hanging from her neck, a tissue balled in her hand. Her attorney, a slender guy with rimless glasses, shuffled papers with a confidence that was about to evaporate. The hearing opened. Eleanor's lawyer presented the diminished capacity claim, calling Silas isolated and confused. Caleb stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He just placed the psychiatric evaluation on the judge's bench. Then he opened the diary. He read aloud the entry from November 14, 2003. Eleanor called at 9 p.m. said she put Lexi out. The child walked 3 miles in the rain to my door. She was 11. She was shaking. Called Eleanor back. She said, "Keep her." "I don't want her." Courtroom went grave quiet. Eleanor shot to her feet. "That's a lie. He made that up." "Sit down, ma'am," the judge barked. Caleb called Mrs. Gable to the stand. She described the night, the rain, the garbage bag, and the 911 call. She described the officer going to Eleanor's house. She looked directly at Eleanor and said, "That was a lie. I watched that little girl walk down the street soaking wet. There was nothing voluntary about it." One of the church women in the back set down her purse and didn't pick it up again. During the recess, Eleanor grabbed my wrist in the hallway. Her grip was like a vice. "You're killing me," she whispered. "Is that what you want?" I removed her hand, finger by finger. "No," I said. "I just want the truth to have a voice." The judge returned and ruled the will of Silas Thorne valid. Eleanor's head dropped. This wasn't a performance, it was the moment her world collapsed. Caleb then presented the final blow, the text messages. Jax to Victor, "Make it look natural." Victor to Jax, "Plan B costs double." Jax to Eleanor, "She's not signing. We might need the backup plan." Eleanor, "Do what you have to do. Just keep me out of it." Church women stared at Eleanor as if she'd just removed a mask. The judge noted that Jax's criminal prosecution for solicitation would proceed. Potential sentence 20 years. He warned Eleanor her own communications were under review. Eleanor didn't move. She sat staring at the table. I stood up, walked past her, and didn't look back. "You've won," she whispered to my back. "Happy now?" I stopped. "This was never about winning, Eleanor." The new nest. 1 week after the trial, Eleanor requested a meeting through Caleb. I'd blocked her number. We met at a coffee shop on Main Street. Maya sat one table over, holding a magazine upside down. Eleanor looked like she'd aged 10 years in 7 days. She sat across from me and folded her hands. "I'm sorry," she said. "For which part?" I asked. She blinked. "For all of it?" "That's not specific enough for me to accept," I told her. She started to cry, and for the first time I couldn't tell if it was real or muscle memory. And for the first time it didn't matter. "I'm not pressing conspiracy charges," I said. "Not because I'm nice. It's just not worth my energy. But here's the deal, you will not contact me. You will not visit the house. If you do, Caleb has everything he needs to bury you." "I'm your mother," she whimpered. "You chose not to be," I said. I stood up, left $8 for the coffees, and walked out into the October air. Jax took a plea deal 3 months later. 8 years. Before they let him out of the courtroom, he looked at me and said, "I just needed the money." That was it. "No, I'm sorry. Just a balance sheet." Eleanor sold her house and moved to a tiny apartment in Florida alone. The perfect mother image she'd curated for decades had vanished. 6 months later, the house on Hubbard Street was reborn as Thorn Nest. We fixed the porch, the leaks, and the floors. I kept Silas's desk in the living room. Mrs. Gable ran the daily operations. Maya was our health advisor. We opened with 3 teenagers. "Did your family throw you out too?" a girl named Lily asked me on opening day. "Yes," I said. "And you turned out okay?" I thought about it. "I turned out honest," I said. "That's better than okay." I found one last envelope in the back of Silas's closet. It held 17 documents, every petition for guardianship he'd ever filed. 17 times he'd walked into a courtroom for me. 17 times my mother slammed the door. And he never told me. He wanted me to feel free, not burdened by his fight. A letter was clipped to the final petition. Dear little bird, if you're reading this, it means you survived. I'm sorry I couldn't fight louder. But love isn't about blood, it's about choice. You chose to keep going. Build your nest. Fill it with people who choose you back. I chose you every single day. Grandpa Silas. Now, the house on Hubbard Street is never quiet. There's music, overcooked spaghetti, and kids figuring out that a safe place doesn't mean a perfect place. I split my time between San Francisco and Glastonbury. I started therapy. I'm learning that surviving isn't the same as being okay, and being strong means healing out loud. I looked down Hubbard Street today, the same road I walked in the rain 21 years ago. The road hadn't changed, but I had. I pulled out the photo of me and Rosemary, 5 years old, laughing. You were always enough. You don't owe loyalty to people who confuse control with love. Leaving is not a betrayal. Boundaries are not cruelty. And building a life they didn't plan for you is the truest form of survival. My grandfather knocked on the door 17 times for me. If no one has knocked on yours yet, consider this my knock. Build your nest. If your family makes you feel small, if they make you wonder if you're worth the trouble, listen to me. Leaving is not a betrayal. Boundaries are not a crime. And building a life they didn't plan for you is the best kind of winning there is. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story touched you, hit the like button. If you have your own story about setting boundaries, the comments are yours. I read every single one. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.